Hello, I'm Dr. Matthew Anderson, and today's lesson is entitled, Why You Cannot Forgive Yourself, and the good news, what you can do about it. Now, I want to make a couple of points before I tell you the bulk of this and what really does work about forgiveness. And it's really important, I think, in order to have this lesson make a deep contribution to us, and God knows we all need it. I have needed it, I still do, and every person I have ever met has need of this lesson about forgiveness for oneself. So, a couple of points I want to make to start. One is, if you haven't noticed already, we live in probably the most individualistic and narcissistic society, the United States of America, particularly the Western world, but particularly us, the most narcissistic and individualistic society that, in terms of history, has ever existed. Nobody has even come close. We have iPhones, I this, I that. Everything is about me, 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 me. And we are about taking care of yourself, not needing other people, doing whatever you need to do for yourself. And you combine both those things, you have a powerful force that surrounds us and infuses, in a certain sense, even infects us with the idea that we have to do, we have this stupid phrase that people use, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Now, if you think about that statement for a moment with a rational mind, you'll know or realize that if you reach down and pull yourself by your own bootstraps, where do you end up? On your ass. You end up on your ass. You pull your feet right out from under you. But we still tell people, they're too needy. They always want help for this. I can't ask for help myself. It's so hard for me to ask for help. That is ultimately the weakest, most powerless position we can put ourselves in, is that we can't ask for help. We think it's a sign of strength. And really and truly, the more you live your life, if you move towards even the smallest modicum of wisdom, you come to realize that having to do everything myself is about as stupid as I can get. And hey, it takes one to know one. I'm not just blaming you guys. I'm saying I've been there myself, and I deal with it a lot. I just want to do it myself. And every single time I fall into that, it gets in the way in terms of my life in general, my physical life, my mental life, my emotional life, and my spiritual life. So, why you can't forgive yourself? We're accustomed to thinking about, we have this phrase, you hear it all the time in self-help books and talks all over the place. YouTube is full of it. Even the spiritual places like Gaia and other kinds of places you go for spiritual guidance, we have this phrase that people like to use. Even psychologists say it. You need to learn how to forgive yourself. And I'm telling you, my friends, it won't work. It will not work. I'm going to tell you why, then I'm going to give you a solution. There is a solution, and actually, it's pretty wonderful. So I hope you can hang in there long enough for my storytelling to get to the real powerful part. But I've got to tell you this couple of stories first so that you can see how this thing works and doesn't work. Years ago, almost 40 years ago now, I lived in Hawaii, and I was sitting on the beach by myself doing some study, a kind of a book that was about psychology and spirituality. It was about forgiveness. And I had this idea. I had my journal with me, and I thought, I'm going to make a list right now of all the things that I've ever done in my life, to myself, to others, to anything, that I have never forgiven myself for. I'm just going to make a list. And because I do understand something about that kind of exercise, I said to myself, Okay, I'm going to make the list and I'm not going to censor. No censoring. I'm not going to say, that's stupid. I'm going to say anything that comes to my mind, I'm going to put it on the list. First thing that came was something I did when I was 11 years old. From my point of view now, you might say, or your point of view, you might say, it was a bit silly. I threw a knife into a tree and my mom asked me not to do it. And she said, honey, if you keep doing that, I was 11 years old. If you keep doing that, honey, you'll kill the tree. And I felt so guilty. I stopped throwing the knife. But I didn't stop feeling guilty, apparently. That was the first thing that came up. It wasn't the last. Before I was finished sitting there on the beach and this stuff just flowed out of me like I could not believe, I came up with 86 items. 86. Now, I don't think I was a particularly bad person, but I was being honest with myself. I am capable, at least then and even more so now, and I've worked on this a lot, of paying attention to my mistakes. It's helpful. I did not realize that along with that, other things were affecting me. So I had a list of 86 items, and I sat there and I went over that list and I said to myself, probably even said it out loud because I was sitting on the beach alone, I forgive myself for this. I forgive myself for this. I forgive myself for this. I went down the whole list. And what proceeded after that, over the next approximately 4 years, was the worst self-inflicted, destructive events of my entire life. And I mean it when I said it was self-inflicted. As I began to look back on it after these things occurred, and I'm not going to go into detail now. I don't want to waste your time about that. You just have to accept me. It was bad. Very bad. It's why I don't even live in Hawaii now. I had to leave. So it was extremely painful. And I could see what I did, what I didn't do, that brought these forces together and caused catastrophe. And so one of the things that I learned out of that is that forgiving myself obviously didn't work. I also learned that each of us has an inner judge. You can call it what you want. I think Freud probably called it the superego, but I'm going to call it the internal judge. Every single person has one. And that judge has no compassion and no mercy and a memory that lasts your lifetime. It's intense, and sometimes I'm convinced all it wants to do is destroy me. I see it active in other people in my practice and working with people. I see it acting in other people who write books and all kinds of stories. We all have this inner judge that looked at my list and said, okay, Matthew, I'm going to kick your butt in punishment for every single one of these items, in punishment for, because when there's a crime, which if I say to myself, I've done something that I need to forgive myself for, I have not forgiven myself for, the judge hears that and says, oh boy, I'll help. Here's what's going to happen to you. Let's put all 86 together and make your life hell for a while. Now, if you don't believe me, I'll tell you another story. I had a client right around that time, maybe a year after, came to me with his girlfriend. He'd been married 3 times. He was 50 years old. He had a master's degree in art, but he had never done anything but be a handyman with his life. He was a brilliant guy, but he was doing something far below what his real talents were being. I'm not saying it's not good to have a handyman. I'm saying he was gifted for something else that would have given him a happier life. And he couldn't make his marriages work. He'd failed 3 times. His girlfriend sits there on the couch and she says, tell Matthew that story. He says, no, it's not irrelevant. Tell Matthew the story. You know how they can be. They're sent by God to help us become aware of what we don't want to pay attention to that might ultimately become healing, enlightening. Okay? So listen to the story. He's 50. The story is this, briefly. When he was 18, he gets in the car with his best friend. They buy a whole bunch of beer, probably illegally. They get in the car to start drinking beer. He gets drunk. He crashes the car and it kills his friend. His best friend dies. He comes out of it hardly with a scratch. And then, apparently, his father had some kind of connection to the local sheriff, and he was never prosecuted. He was never punished. He never was called to account for this thing. I don't even think he got a DUI for it. So what did he do? His inner judge just went crazy on him. And by the time he was 50, he was still suffering. Once he started to really tell me the story, he began to sob. His heart was broken about it, just like this thing had happened 2 days before. And in self-punishment, his inner judge had said to him, you killed your best friend, I'm going to put you in prison. It doesn't look like a prison on the outside, but on the inside it is. I'm going to frickin' destroy your life because you took a life. Now remember, this inner judge is not grown up, it's not mature, it's not insightful, and it's got no mercy and no compassion. I'm telling you, every single one of you has this in you, and if you don't acknowledge it, you are in danger because it will screw up your life. Relationships, jobs, any part of your life that doesn't work, you could probably find that working deep hidden underneath. Okay, so I realized because some insight came to me, some gift, and I should have paid attention for myself about this. I helped him with this and I didn't get how I needed it. I guess I was a tougher case than he was. So I was leading groups then. I had this rather large group with 20 people in it. We had this workshop over a weekend, and we did a forgiveness morning on a Saturday morning. And I said, anybody who wants to receive forgiveness for something they've never been able to forgive themselves for, sit in that chair. And there's the chair in the middle of the room. He stood up. He sat down in the chair and he began I can feel it now. He started to cry. But he told the story. And in the end, I said, anybody who wants to help with forgiveness for this man, stand up. We stood up. We put our arms, our hands on him. We asked God to forgive him, and we forgave him. It's one of those times in my life, and maybe some of you have experienced it, when the presence when the divine presence is so powerful, you can feel it in your hands, in your body. And he was so touched. I think he was healed. And so eventually we left Hawaii, and I stayed in touch with him a while. He married his girlfriend, and last I heard, he was doing really well. What I want you to know about that from this lesson, besides the fact that it's really okay to cry when you feel like that, it brings me into that presence. So I have no apologies for crying and being overcome. I hope it happens to you when you hear this, because it means it's very close to you. So forgiveness is not an act of ego. It is a divine act. No matter who does it, what they believe in it or not, if I say or you say to somebody else, I forgive you, you have opened yourself to divine power that then wants to come through you to that person. It is a free gift. We call that grace. It is a free gift that we do not deserve in terms of the rules of the inner judge. We committed a crime, we should pay the price. Do the crime, you have to do the time. That's the rules of that. And it has caused havoc in human lives for eons because we don't realize what the real solution is. The real solution is to open ourselves to forgiving other people, because forgiveness is a relationship. It is an essential part of relationship. It is a divine gift to relationship that we can give to others. Anytime you even have an inclination that you want to forgive someone, you are in the presence of the divine, in the presence of God. It is right there in your feeling, in your emotion, in your body, in your mind. That's what that is. I don't care if you believe in God or not. I don't freaking care. God doesn't care either, because you have evoked that presence by thinking about forgiveness. Except when you say, I'm going to forgive myself, you put up a wall and shut off the divine flow, because divine flow is too powerful for your ego. It's not there's not a little space for it to get through that. Can't get through it. It's what you need to do if you want to have forgiveness for your list. And I'm telling you, if you're more than 5 years old, you've already started a list. More than 5. And the list is going to be endless. That's why Jesus said, forgive 70 times 7. That's why Rumi says Muhammad asked God to forgive him 70 times a day. Not because he thought he was such a bad person, but because he knows that's a gift he wanted to receive. What's going on with me that's getting in the way of my flow and being part of what is wonderful and joyful and healing and transformational in this life? It gets in the way of ecstasy. It gets in the way of joy. It creates depression and all kinds of crap when we don't feel forgiven, when we haven't cleaned that crap out of our system by asking for help with it. And so we cannot say, I will be the classic American. I'm my own person. I will forgive myself. And really what we're saying with that is we don't need divine source. We don't need divine power in our lives. We'll just do it ourselves. And so the divine source just steps back at that point and says, okay, Matthew, I love you. I don't want you to stand on those tracks and have that train splatter you all over the place. God bless you. But if you don't let me help you off the track, it's going to smash your butt. Here's the thing. The power of forgiveness is always present. You're just going to have to take my word for that. If you don't believe it, I'm going to ask you just to trust me just a little bit. It's always there. That love is always this far from your heart, waiting to be invited in. But it will not come unless you open the door. And what opens the door is humility. As Rumi said in a line in one of his poems, which I love to quote because it touches me so much. Prayer is an egg. Hatch out the total helplessness inside. Total helplessness is inside the thing that wants to give birth to a new life, the egg. And it is helplessness that says, help me. I can't get past this thing. This thing that I did that I think hurt me, hurt the world, hurt the people I love, hurt my enemies, hurt my children, hurt my brothers and sisters, hurt everything I can imagine. And by the time you get to be 40 or 78, which is what I am right now, you've done that a lot. Nobody's exempt. But the wonderful thing is, when we get this lesson, we can accept helplessness, and what happens when we become that kind of helpless is divine love, power, and forgiveness floods into us in a way you cannot imagine. You don't have to do anything, and that is so against the American individualistic, narcissistic point of view. It is the total frickin' opposite. I did this stuff. He killed his friend. He got drunk and crashed the car. He was responsible for that. I've done stuff that's hurt everybody I know who was important to me. And people who weren't important. I'm like everybody else. I do this crap. I have done it. I tend to do it less now that I've learned this lesson. Hopefully a lot less. And I have a lot more space in me for that energy to rush in. So I do believe and feel that I'm forgiven. And guess what? I ask for forgiveness every day. Because that inner judge is always listening and watching. And thinking, okay, Matthew, you missed the mark there. You screwed up there. You hurt this person there. You were insensitive there. You were selfish here. You were narcissistic there. You were not generous. You weren't compassionate. Not that I'm sinning. It's meaning that I'm on the wrong track. I have taken a left turn. I've gone down into the swamp and I got mud all over me. And that's not where I want to live, down in the swamp with the bugs and the alligators. That's where the inner judge wants to take every single one of us. You want to call it the devil or Satan or anything like that? I don't care what you call it. I like inner judge, but I'm telling you, it's powerful. And every time we make mistakes that we feel any sense of shame or guilt or anything like that about, if you want to be cleansed of the shame in your life, and I'm telling you, my friend, everybody has some. Everybody. You think about all those people out there, and I'm sure you can pick one or two. You think, boy, that person is so wonderful. I can't imagine they got a list. They got a list just as long as mine, buddy. Just as long as mine. Or, I was going to say longer, but nah, maybe not. We all have it. We all in need of it. And what happens when we open ourselves and go to here's the thing. You sit down, you close your eyes. Listen, this is the exercise. You sit down, you close your eyes, and you say, if you're accustomed to talking to God, that's fine. If you're not sure what you believe in, you say, dear, loving, and forgiving divine source. It's fine. It's not going to take offense if you don't use the right name. It's divine. You close your eyes and you say, dear, loving and forgiving divine source, I need your help. I need forgiveness for this and this and this and this. And then, don't forget the second part. Okay, you can't make the forgiveness come, because forgiveness is not something we control for ourselves. Our job is to open and receive it. And what I do when I ask for forgiveness, when I ask and I feel my heart open, I open my arms and I let myself receive it. I close my eyes and it's simply open. If I don't feel so open, I say, I open myself to this grace of forgiveness. I am so grateful. Thank you. That's it. Guess what? I suggest if you're new at this, you pray that prayer maybe 5 or 6 times in a row. Maybe you write it down and you read it out loud. And you do it every frickin' day. Notice I didn't say until. Why disconnect yourself from one of the most transforming, life-clearing, therapeutic, healing, inspiring, transformation, I didn't say that word right, transformational energies and gifts that could ever come to you in this life that we share? Why disconnect when what you need is to put your ego down, stop trying to control everything, and say, help me, and then receive it? I hope, for your sake, but also for all the rest of us who have anything to do with you, that you open yourself to forgiveness. Make your list. Make it as harsh and as terrible as you want. Be as honest with yourself as you possibly can. If it comes up, you put it down. If it doesn't make any sense, you might say, somehow I feel responsible for the Israeli-Palestinian war, and you're not you're not Jewish, you're not Palestinian, you don't live there, but something in your heart feels, put it on the list. You may find someday that you did have an influence in it. It will make a massive, massive difference in your life. I could go on for hours about this subject, but I think you got the essence of it. And you know by now that you need it. It is a divine gift of grace. It's free. You did not earn it. That's why it's so wonderful. Just be grateful. God bless you.